Welcome YouTube. Welcome to Sin City Living. We're going to be going over a couple of dice things today. We're going to go over my personal favorite strategy to deal 2 and probably my second favorite strategy to play. I'm primarily going to be a power presser, which is in the other videos, the 2-part video that I shot, but sometimes I do what I call the mid-press method. And the mid-press method is exactly what it sounds like. It's kind of in the middle. Now, there's 2 different ways to do it. So it kind of depends upon my mood. So I'm going to set it up twice. So what I will do, regardless of what the point is, I will do 64 across, including the point. So I'm going to set it up twice. Because there's 2 different ways that I may do this, depending on how I feel. And those 2 different methods are, sometimes I will do what's called cross pressing, and other times I'm just going to do single presses. Now the difference between this and the power press method that I already went over is that this method you're actually going to be drawing a little bit back on almost every single roll. Sometimes it's not that much, but you're going to draw a little bit back. Now the downside to this method is that if you catch that mythical 60-70 roll hand that comes out once every few weeks to once a month, you're not going to make as much as you would on a power press. However, what this will do is when you catch those 15 to 20 roll hands that come out every few hours, you're actually going to make a little bit more than you would on the power press method. And similar to the power press method, where you're not so much looking for that statistical likelihood, but you're looking for that roll that kind of breaks some statistics, where the same number will roll multiple times. That's where you start making a little bit of money. Again, you're not going to make as much as the power press, but because you're pulling some back in the smaller rolls, you're going to make more. So we'll look at this on each one of these numbers and how we would do it. So let's say a 4 or a 10 would roll. Okay, we'll say the 10. So if a 10 would roll, one way to do it would be to dual press, in which case when it pays the $18, you will dual press each one of them up to 15 and collect. The other option is you will collect $4 and you will single press this one all the way up to a quarter. Now if it were to roll again, a couple different ways to do it. It's going to pay 27. Now one way, the dual press will press both of them up to a quarter. The single press, this one will pay 50 for one. Press this one up to 50. Now, that's if the 10 were to roll twice, we'd be at $50. Now, if the 4 or the 10 were to roll, the 4 or the 10 combined were to roll twice on the cross press, each one of them is at a quarter. If you're only pressing one number, you can get one of them a little bit higher while actually having pulled back a little bit more, but their other number is far lower. So there's good and bad to either side of it, depending on how you want to play it. Now at this point, we're looking at the same things. Now we're not going to cross press. Once we get to the green, we don't cross press anymore, even on the cross press method. So even if this were to roll again, we would do the same thing as we did here. We would bump this up to 50. So it would roll, we would take the $1, bump this to 50. If this one were to roll, we would pay the 100 for 2. Probably press to 100 and collect. So you see here, you're pulling back money fairly quickly. So and then same thing, we would go up to 100 here. Here we would go up to probably 200. Then we would likely go up to 300 or 400, depending on how we're feeling. Now with the 5 or 9, if these were to roll, we'll pretend the point is 5 just so I can work with the 9. We're going to do some cross pressing again with the first one. At the second one, we're going to do some individual pressing. So with the first one, if it rolls, we will say press the 5 and the 9, in which case we will collect. We will make them both look like 15 each. With this one, we're actually going to collect a little bit more because we're only going to press it 1 unit. If we're pressing it individually, we actually have a plan, a progression. So we're going to pull a little bit more there, and we're going to stay at 15. Now, if the 9 were to roll again, we would again cross press on the first one. So on the first one, we would only collect $1 because we would make both of them, the 5 and the 9, look like a quarter. With the one that we're individually pressing, we're going to tell them take it all the way up, in which case we're going to make the whole thing look like $36. Now this is an improper bet, yes, but it's an improper bet that actually pays a fairly even amount. It pays exactly $50 on the dot, so that's what we're shooting for. Now from here, this person and this person are going to go somewhat similar, just a beat behind. Now that we're in the green, we're not going to cross press anymore. So if the 9 rolls, it pays 35. And we're going to say we want it to look like 35, and we're going to collect a green. On this one, it pays 50, and we're going to go to 50. If we were to roll again, we would pay it 50 for the $1, and we would look like 50. And on this one, we would take it to 75, and we would collect. If they roll again, we're doing the same thing, going to 75 and collecting. This one pays 105. We're going to go to 100 and collect. And then from here, we're likely going to go to 150. Then we're probably going to go up to 250. Then we're going to go to 350, 500, 1,000, and then from there, however you feel like going. This one's going to do the same. It's just going to be a beat behind. So the next one goes to the 100, then the 150, then the 250, then the 500. For the 6 and 8, same things, cross presses and dual presses. So the first person, it's going to pay 14. And we're going to say press the 6 and the 8. So we're only going to collect $2. And each one of them is going to look like $18. For this guy, we're just going to press it all the way up. In which case we're going to collect $2. But we go up to 24. Now this is the spot where, this is the only number where I'm only going to cross press once. Because from here, I'm going to take these straight up. So if this were to roll, again, if the 8 were to roll, this pays 21. We're going to pay it 26 for 5, and we're going to make it look like $30. Same thing over here. This one pays 28. We're going to tell him to make it look like 30, so he's going to take 2. And we're going to collect. Now at this point, they do the exact same things. From here, pays 35. This person's going to throw in $2. They may not even speak because this is such an obvious one to experienced dealers that they don't have to say anything. We already know they want to collect the green, and they want to make their whole bet look like $42. So then we'll do it with the other person. They throw in their $2. We give them the green, and it goes to 42. From 42, we will pay 49 for 1, take us to 60, or 50 for 1, I'm sorry. We will pay 49, we'll pay 50 for 1, make it look like 60. Now this is the point where we start going a little bit bigger. Pay 70, we're actually going to take it up to 90. Now from 90, then you start having personal preference. You can go from 90 up to 120. You can go from 90 up to 150. And then you can just continue to press it on from there however you prefer, whatever you're most comfortable with. If you wanted to, like I said, you can go to 120 and collect. Or you can go to 150 and collect. Now for 120, you're almost guaranteed to go to 150. It's kind of the easiest one. And you're going to collect. Now 150 is going to pay 175. I am likely to pay it 200 for 25. Throw in 10 bucks. We'll take the whole thing to 210. So 150 pays 175. Same thing. Now we're actually a beat behind. This one's going to pay 245. Right? So 250 for 5. Go to 300. So now this one's a beat behind that one just because they did something slightly different. He went to 120 while he went to 150. But the end result is the same. And what you'll see here from all of this is that every single roll you're collecting a little bit. It's not like the power press. At the power press point, most of these guys are in the 5, 6, 700s range. Pretty much all of these numbers, depending on how they rolled. But it would be bare over there, and in fact, possibly even negative because you threw in some extra money here and there. Whereas with the mid-press method, you're collecting a little bit. And as these numbers roll, if you get that lucky third or fourth time that number rolls, you're getting up into the black, but you've also pulled back some green. You probably, if a single number rolls just four times, you were probably at your break-even point for all of your bets. You probably have your $64 back from your 64 across, including the points. And then all it takes is, the fifth, the sixth time, and you notice you're pulling blacks back now. You've pulled quite a few greens, and you're starting to pull some blacks back. You're pulling back $100 at a time. So it doesn't take a hugely massive roll to break even with the mid-press method. It doesn't take a hugely massive roll to be ahead with the mid-press method. The downside is that hugely massive roll, you won't win quite as much. With these progressions, you will hit table max eventually, but not as fast as with the power press. So where the power press, you're pulling back $22,000, $23,000 after a 60 roll hand. With the mid-press method, I'll have to run the numbers on this one. With the mid-press method, you're gonna pull back significantly less, but you are still gonna pull back. This is honestly the most common method that I come across, that I deal to, that I see as successful. Just like any other method, more often than not, this method loses money. Because again, the odds are in the house's favor. Generally speaking, when you go to play, you're going to lose money. No system that you are going to see on YouTube or anywhere else is a foolproof system where you're guaranteed to make money every single time. It just doesn't exist. I'm going to go over some of the systems that I've seen that include don't comes plus the cross bets and stuff like that, and what we call the do we don't, where we're betting on both sides. But those systems are pretty much doomed for failure. This system is the system that I have seen people play the longest, to sit at the table the longest. Now, oftentimes when I see this system, there's people that are buying in for $500 to $1,000 because they know they're going 64 across. They're betting $64 every single hand. All it takes is 10 point outs, and they've already lost $640. But their thinking is that it's unlikely there's going to be 10 point outs. Most likely they're going to pull a little bit back on a lot of these rolls. So after 10 hands, even if they've been bad, they've maybe only lost $300 or $400. And their odds of seeing the same number roll 6 times out of, say, 20 shooters is not horrible. It's still not in their favor, but it's not horrible. It's going to happen a decent amount of times. And if they can just hold on, if they can play long enough, they're going to see a hand at some point that is going to enable them, in theory, to pull their $1,000 back and make a profit. If that hand comes across early on in their night, then they're actually going to make their money. If it comes near the tail end where they're down to the last $150, then they may only break even. But I do see this method fairly often, and it's the one that I see able to stay on the table the longest while still being able to make money if you catch a decent roll, a good roll. I see a lot of systems that are based on grinding and just staying on the table, but those same systems don't make a lot of money if there happens to be a good roll. The do-we-don'ts, the grinder systems, the regressive strategies, all of those are not focused on making money. They're focused on staying at the table, staying in the game, or trying to win $5, which is just trying to stay in the game, stay at the table. When we have a roll of that lasts 25, 30 minutes, and we have, right now we're only allowed 6 players, 3 on each side, but when we have a full table, or not even full, just a half full table, 8 to 10 players, even the 6 players that are most likely the player that wins the most is the one playing this method. Generally, when I have one of these rolls, I will look up at the rails and I will notice that most of the players that bought in for $100 are sitting on a stack about like this at their rail. Maybe a couple extra greens, maybe a black in there. So most of the people that buy in for $100, if they catch a 20-minute roll, are sitting on $200, maybe $250, $300. Whereas the power presser, if they catch a 25-minute roll, might actually be in the hole. Depends on if the same number rolled enough times for them to hit the point where they're pulling back enough to break even. Whereas the mid-presser, if they catch that 25-minute roll, these are the people that most likely have $500, $600, $700, $800, $900 in the rail, possibly even $2,000, $2,500, depending on how aggressive they got. Most mid-pressers tend to be less aggressive near the beginning and then start to really ramp it up. From here, likely to go up to 600. They're just going to skip the 420. Whereas if you're at 30, you go to 42, but from 300, they're likely going to jump straight up to 600 because they've already pulled blacks back. They've already pulled a few $100s back. They're already doubled up maybe from their buy-in. Definitely profitable for this roll. So now they're going to shoot for it. So it tends to, the mid-press method, they tend to pick up steam. They tend to really go for it as the roll continues on. But this, hands down, my favorite method to deal to, this and the power press, because this feels like I'm actually dealing. I'm actually moving some checks around, doing some presses, doing some moves, and we'd like to see people win. It really frustrates dealers when we see people that are grinding out, trying to win $2, trying to win $5 an hour. We want to see people that are coming in, buying in for $200 and going, trying to win $1,000. Because one, it makes us happy. It really, really does. Everyone seems to think we work for that we're rooting for the house, and we're really not. I mean, 70% of what we make comes from the players. We only get that money if they win. And players like this, we like to see people that really know what they're doing too, really, really understand the game and really have fun with it. So this is just enjoyable to play. For me, this is what I would play if I went to the casino and I bought in for, say, $1,000. I would probably play a mid-press method. Because for $1,000, I want to see a lot more hands to try and win $2,000 or $3,000. If I'm only going up to the table and buying in for $200, then I'm probably going to do the power press method, because my thinking with $200 is I'm not going to see a lot of hands, so I need to just hope I get lucky and catch that super monster hand and be able to get something up to a table max. Again, I think I've said this before, but I want to leave with either none of the chips or all of the chips, especially if I have a small buy-in. If I'm buying in for $1,000, then I'm probably looking at just try and win $1,000, in which case the mid-press method is the method that I would prefer. And that is the mid-press method, my second favorite method to play, my personal favorite method to deal to. Thank you for watching. Please hit the like and subscribe. Check us out on Patreon, and we will see you next time.